Hey, this is JJ, and I'm here with
Eric.
He's my husband, and we eat proper human diet. And today we're going to share with you our experiences of adapting to a proper human diet, because there is definitely an adaptation or a transition period.
There is definitely. But why are we doing it in the first place? Well, it was a bunch of benefits we wanted. And if you watch the previous videos, you'll see the benefits we got and the ones we haven't gotten yet. Mm-hmm. But she's the one who started.
Well, I actually started my journey, I believe, in March of 2021 when I started with time-restricted eating based on my doctor's advice, actually. And so I consider that the start. And then I went to a mostly meat diet in October of 2022. So I want to go back to the time-restricted eating. And at first, well, when I was starting that, I was going from a lot of people 3 meals a day. I was definitely eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm not, well, I was about to say I'm not a big snacker. I'm not someone who carried snacks in my purse or felt like I needed a lot of snacks throughout the day. But what I did is every time I walked by our cashews, I was grabbing a handful. So the first thing was hunger. When I started to restrict down to, I started with an 8-hour eating window, and I was hungry. And so there was an adaptation period where I just had to sort of allow that hunger to happen and look forward to eating my lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you went to more of a proper human diet in addition to your time-restricted eating.
Yes. So you want me to go on to one of my others?
You should go right on to it.
All right. So what another adaptation period thing that one might need to deal with that I dealt with was unmet expectations. And that's because I believed that when I started the time-restricted eating, actually, that I would begin to lose weight. And I went 7 months without losing a single pound. I haven't said this, I actually went longer, because I went nearly, I have to do math. No, it was more than a year. I went more than a year without losing any weight. Now, the first part of the year, I was doing a dirty fast. So what that means is I went to my doctor and he's like, no, remember, I told you, you can only drink water, black coffee, and unsweetened tea. That's all you can eat. And I was like, oops, I was taking all the online advice about keep your calories under 50. And do you remember I was drinking that sort of caffeinated, fruity beverage, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to use the name. But yeah, so I would drink that in the morning, under 50 calories, thought I was good. And so didn't lose any weight during that period. Started clean fasting and continued to not lose weight for 7 more months. Now, I talked about a benefit of allergy reduction that I experienced right away when I started clean fasting. So I stuck with it, but I definitely felt like I should have been losing weight, and I wasn't. So I had to just sort of know I was on the right track.
Well, that at some point you got on the right track, because I noticed.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, after I started that spring doing clean fasting. By that fall, I naturally, and I want to be really clear about this, I naturally moved into a meat-based diet, mostly meat diet, and sort of a ketovore type thing. And naturally moved that direction. It wasn't a forced things by that time. I had experienced so much food freedom, which is a result I talked about in a previous video. I was experiencing so much food freedom that it was easy to move into that lower carb lifestyle, higher nutrient lifestyle. And so then I started to lose weight. And then, yeah.
So independent of that, I listened to a podcast. I think it might have been Tim Ferriss or Peter Attia or something. They had somebody on who was like, you need to be eating 30 grams of protein per dose of protein, and you need a lot of protein every day, and every adult needs to be doing this, because as you age you'll have sarcopenia and you'll become frail, and that'll result in injury and death. And I was like, well, now that I know it's true, and I can inform her of what she should be doing is correct. She has correctly chosen the right path to eat this protein. That's not what happened at all.
Well,
Not at
actually,
all.
when you first you first said it, I was doing time restricted eating, but I sort of heard wah 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 wah.
So, but the phrase that I did see to her is like, I see the results. You are aging in reverse.
You did say that to me.
And it was apparent to me that what she was doing was working. And I had a number of issues that I wanted to resolve. Wasn't super overweight, but I was definitely not happy with where I was at. And as I've mentioned in a previous video, I had several of the signs of metabolic syndrome, and the trajectory was going in the wrong direction. So making the transition then to deciding like, and kind of the way that I'm wired is, I feel like if I'm going to make a change like this, it should also be a punishment for all previous behavior. So I need to make it extremely difficult.
You are wired that way.
I am wired that way thanks to my dad, whose voice, even now, is whispering in my ear that I'm doing this wrong. Okay, so moving on. Mm-hmm. The first thing I noticed when I remember, I think we were in bed, I'm like, I'm going carnivore. I've got to pull the bandage off all at once. Except for I'm going to keep drinking coffee.
I was thrilled by that, by the way, because navigating this without you was a little more, it was a little part of that adaptation. It was a little challenging.
Yeah, and of course, she couldn't come to me and say, look, you need to change what you're doing and start eating the way I'm going to eat, because you know how that's going to go.
Well, we don't actually have that type of relationship.
So the first thing was the very day waking up and going, okay, so what does this mean in terms of breakfast? Well, I probably shouldn't just have a Quest bar and a Kind bar and some coffee. So it meant that I was going to have some eggs and bacon, and which is fine. I like that. So I have that with my coffee. I'm happy. And then it gets to lunchtime, and it's like, usually I've been having like a big salad or something like that. And I had learned to like it the way that I made it. And now I had to eat a slab of meat, which I didn't want for lunch, but I ate it because I'm like, well, this is punishment. So what do you expect? You're gonna love it? No, you're not. It's not gonna help you if you don't suffer. And then dinner was also meat, which I ate.
Yeah, I made it. You ate
but
it.
The point of this was that early day, the first few days, there was definitely a sense of deprivation of like, I am definitely giving up delicious things and I don't like it. But it quickly began to work because, as I've mentioned in a previous video, if I go even near keto, I immediately drop 5 pounds just by thinking it. Like I could say the word keto and I'd lose a pound. Yeah, it's like, keto, whoa. I'd better not say it too much. So I immediately started having results. So that helps because once you see progress, then it feels like success. What else do you got? That
I've covered pretty much mine. Okay. Now, what's interesting though is my adaptation period was really quite psychological, more than physical.
Yeah.
But yours?
Well, mine had a very dramatic physical consequence, and that is what we call in this household an involuntary cleanse.
Yeah.
And if you've ever done a liver or gallbladder cleanse, you know what I mean, except for this is just spontaneously happening. And this went on for actually a long time for me.
I feel like most people say it resolves in a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, but I think yours was about twice that.
Yeah, it went on a while, but it did eventually resolve, and I'm glad it did. And now I don't have any issues like that. One of the things I had to get over was eating the fat on the steak. So if I prepared a ribeye for lunch, in the past, because like I said before, we're Gen Xers, we grew up in the low-fat brainwashing. And so just even putting it on the fork and putting it in the mouth and eating it felt like I needed an angioplasty immediately. I need to have that going on while I'm eating it. Even though it's delicious, the fat is often quite tasty. And forcing myself, not because I was sick or full, but just forcing myself to enjoy it and eat it and swallow it and not worry about it was really hard. And so one of the things that I had to do was brainwash myself into the truth. And so what I did was I went and started watching Dr. Berry, who she had been watching, which I was like, who is that guy? Why are you watching him all the time? If it's not him, it's Z-Dog, and I don't like him either. So, so anyway, I binged Dr. Berry, Dr. Baker, Dr. Chafee. I'm sure I'm leaving out a bunch of other YouTubers, just to keep the message coming into my mind, just keep it flowing into my mind.
I still do. I still every day, I think I hit a carnivore YouTube or podcast.
It's really important. And so the thing I did was I binge Barry to build belief. And I hope he sees this, because that's what's really important to getting through the transition.
Yeah.
I did 30 days of beef, bacon, butter, and eggs, and I know he recommends just do 90 days. But for me, 90 days is 30 days.
Yeah.
I have
For all of us in the household, 90 days is 30. 30 days is 90.
When I tell her that I'm a man with a lot of patience, she says, "You're not a doctor." No, she says this is a ridiculous statement, and yet I feel like I have an extraordinary patience, and so it's all relative. But my patience is extremely short. One other thing that was really helpful for me in making the transition to the proper human diet was finding my go-to meals. And for me, it was very important to be edible. Enjoyable would be nice, but quick. I don't want to spend any time making it.
No, but I will say your go-to meals is a thing for you. I crave, generally speaking, I crave a little more variety than you do. You've always been someone who can sort of lock into one thing.
Yeah, when I was eating the Mark Sisson's BAS salad, which was ginormous bowl full of greens. It had shredded beets on it, nuts on it, a lot of olive oil, chicken breast. I don't want too much fat.
No.
I would eat that every single day, and I loved it.
Which is why I've never done triple B&E because
it's too restrictive.
It's too restrictive. Now, if I had to for a health issue, I definitely would.
Neither of us were starting this extremely overweight or with diabetes, so we had some advantage. And in a way, an advantage is a disadvantage because it doesn't make you really buckle down and just do it. Because I did rely... Well, the first 30 days, I did not drink any of the artificial sweetened soda. Excuse me. I had a non-compliant lunch. Otherwise, I wouldn't be burping at all, ever.
Yeah.
But Zevia is my drug of choice. It's soda sweetened with stevia, and I like the black, was it cherry?
Black cherry.
Black cherry. It tastes terrible if you're coming from sweetened, like with sugar, but once you get used to it, it's like, oh, it's so good.
And it's less bad.
Yeah, I kind of
I
optimized towards less bad. I did stay with coffee. I know some of the purists are like, well, that's a plant that you're steeping in hot water.
Coffee. That's an adaptation thing that was very strange to me. I did not touch coffee ever. Don't like it, don't want it. I mean, it smells fine, but I don't want it touching my lips. And, oh gosh, after I started the time restricted eating, which of course you're allowed, I mean, maybe this is psychological, you're allowed black coffee, black tea. Didn't like tea that much either. Sometimes I get into a little tea, but not black tea. Ugh. And water. And I was like, okay, so I was fasting just water fast pretty much for my IF, intermittent fasting. And all of a sudden I started craving coffee. So that was just an interesting thing. I don't know why that happened during that sort of adaptation period. So now I drink about a cold brew. Again, brewed coffee is still a little much for me, but I drink a cold brew, half calf every morning. But yeah, strange craving.
So dealing with the sweet tooth, I have to have some sort of substitute for treat. And for a long time, we were having I don't know what was in that cookie bar I used to make.
It was a keto.
It was a
cookie
keto bar, but it had actual sugar containing chocolate chips in it.
Yes, I started it with the lilies, but then
And I snuck in the good stuff. And then that just became a thing. I'd make a batch per week, and we'd have one little bar as a treat at the end of the day. And obviously going into the proper human diet, that's just not on the plan. And what I discovered was I needed some electrolyte supplementation anyway, and I stumbled into Chocolate Element, which you use hot water and you have a hot chocolate, salty hot chocolate, and that became my go-to end of the day treat, and I love it.
Which I stayed away from. I was like, whatever, until they released the caramel chocolate element. Because I am a salted caramel chocolate.
Yeah. So it's nice to have those things where you can have a little bit of a treat and not feel totally deprived. Because depending on the state of your dysregulation, you can indulge that or not. But I can, or I will, and that's how I am going to do it.
You get signals from your body pretty quickly
Yes.
when something doesn't work, though.
And that is a very clear, is that if I eat very, very clean and I'm just doing pure carnivore, and I can generally buffer a little bit of a piece of bread or something, or one meal that's a little off plan. But if I do it more than once, all the symptoms, the reflux, the IBS, all of it starts to come back just like that. So the pull of the sweet tooth is always combating the, do I really want to pay for it? And sometimes I do, and I pay the price, but many times I don't.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about our adaptation on our proper human diet journey. Because as you hear, I think we'll probably go even further, more compliance as we go on.
Yeah. Well, especially when the holidays are over here, because this is a hard time. Every association is around treats. Yeah. So, but we've done really well this.
Oh, compared to what we've done in the past, this has been incredible. We've done a really good job. So,
well, congratulations to us.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in, watching us talk about this adaptation period. If you have adopted the proper human diet and you've had experience with some sort of an adaptation, whether it's good or bad, leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. And if you know Dr. Berry, tell him binge berry to build belief.
Love it.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.